Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment to really think about what small means. Often when we set goals for ourselves, whether it's getting fit, learning a new language, or improving our career, our minds tend to focus on the big picture. We dream of the final outcome, the six-pack abs, the fluency in French, the promotion at work. And while these dreams are important, what we sometimes forget is that the journey is made up of small, incremental steps. Now, here's the paradox: those small steps, which may feel insignificant or even trivial in the moment, are the very things that will create the transformation you're after. The truth is, it's the little things you do every day that accumulate and over time lead to massive results. Think about it. If you want to get fit, you might start by simply walking 10 minutes a day. It doesn't seem like much, does it? You might not notice any difference after the first few days or even the first few weeks. But here's where the magic happens: those 10 minutes add up. After a month, that's over 300 minutes of walking. After a year, that's 120 hours, nearly 5 full days of walking. Now imagine what happens when you consistently add more. Maybe you increase your walking time, or you start jogging for those 10 minutes, or you add in strength training. What started as a tiny action, a small habit, is now becoming something far more powerful. And over time, it will radically change your health, your body, and your life. The key here is that it's not the intensity of a single action, but the consistency of that action over time that leads to big results. This idea applies to every area of life. Learning a new skill is another great example. Let's say you want to learn to play the piano. You could sit down for hours on end trying to master a song, but realistically, most people don't have the time or energy to do that every day. But what if you practice for just 15 minutes a day? At first, those 15 minutes might not seem like they're moving you closer to your goal. You might still be struggling with the basics. But after a few weeks, you'll start to notice that your fingers are more comfortable on the keys. In 3 months, you'll be able to play simple songs, and in 6 months, you'll look back and be amazed at how much progress you've made. Those small, daily habits will add up in a way you never imagined. When you consistently work on something, no matter how small the effort feels, you begin to build a momentum that carries you forward, often in ways that you can't predict or measure in the short term. We often overestimate what we can achieve in the short term, but we consistently underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. There's a reason why this idea of consistency is so powerful. It's not about short bursts of effort, it's about making progress that's sustainable. Think about saving money in a piggy bank. If you put $1 in every day, it doesn't seem like much at first, right? But as the months go by, you realize that those small amounts are starting to add up to something meaningful. Before you know it, your account has grown far more than you ever expected. The same applies to your habits. Those daily deposits of effort are what will eventually add up to big, tangible results. And here's the real beauty of it: the compound effect of small actions doesn't just create results, it also builds your belief in yourself. Every time you show up and take even a tiny step forward, you're reinforcing a key mindset: I can do this. You're strengthening your self-discipline, and you're proving to yourself that your efforts matter, even when they don't seem to be making a huge impact. Over time, you start to gain more confidence in your ability to stick with things, to follow through, and to achieve your goals. So remember, the key to massive transformation lies in the small actions you take each day, even when they feel insignificant in the moment. Every small habit, when done consistently, has the power to change your life in ways that you may not fully understand until you look back and realize how far you've come. When we think about achieving something great, we often envision a monumental single effort, a grand breakthrough, a defining moment that changes everything. But in reality, the most significant transformations rarely come from one-time heroic actions. Instead, they emerge from the quiet power of accumulation, those small, repeated efforts that add up over time, often in ways that are not immediately visible. Imagine for a moment that you're trying to get into better physical shape. You might decide to work out for 20 minutes every day. At first, that effort doesn't seem like much. After a week, you might not notice any significant changes in your body. After a month, the results might still be subtle. But here's the thing: over the course of a year, you've worked out for nearly 7,300 minutes, over 120 hours of exercise. That's equivalent to almost 5 full days of intense physical activity. And when you look back, you'll realize that those 20-minute sessions didn't just add up in terms of time, they added up in terms of strength, endurance, and transformation. This is the power of accumulation, little consistent efforts that, when stacked on top of each other, produce far greater results than we ever expected. What starts as a seemingly small action, one 20-minute workout builds momentum and leads to exponential growth over time. But it's not just fitness where accumulation plays a critical role. This principle applies across all areas of life. Learning is a perfect example. If you study a language for just 15 minutes every day, it might feel like you're not making much progress. But after a month, you'll have spent over 7.5 hours learning. After a year, that's more than 90 hours, enough time to acquire a decent foundation in a new language. The key here is that learning is cumulative. Each new word, each grammar rule, each practice session builds on the last, making your skills stronger and more ingrained as you move forward. In fact, the power of accumulation is why consistency beats intensity in the long run. When we're overly focused on quick, dramatic results, we tend to go for the all-in approach, a crash diet, a week of intense study, a major overhaul of our habits. But this often leads to burnout, frustration, and eventual failure because such intense efforts are difficult to maintain. Instead, consider what happens when you make small efforts a regular part of your routine. These daily habits start to accumulate over time, and without you even realizing it, they compound into something much greater than the sum of their parts. That small habit, whether it's reading for 15 minutes, writing 200 words, or stretching every morning, might not seem significant on its own. But if you do it consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month, the results are powerful. Take the concept of saving money. If you put aside just $5 every day, you might not think it's enough to make a difference. But after 1 year, that's $1,825. Over 10 years, that's more than $18,000. And when you add compound interest to the equation, the total amount becomes even greater. Small, consistent actions create an effect that snowballs, leading to results far beyond what you would have expected from those seemingly trivial daily contributions. The same is true with personal growth. Each day you have the opportunity to develop yourself, whether it's through reading a self-help book, journaling, or reflecting on your actions. You might not notice immediate changes in your mindset or outlook, but those small daily improvements accumulate. Over time, the person you become will be far more resilient, more insightful, and more capable than you could have imagined at the beginning of the journey. One of the reasons this concept of accumulation is so powerful is that it removes the pressure of perfection. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to see massive results every single day. What matters is that you show up consistently. As you continue to take small steps, you will begin to see the cumulative effect of your efforts. Those little actions, though modest on their own, are building a foundation for success that you can't achieve in a single burst of effort. Here's the core idea: the process of accumulation is deceptively simple. By committing to small actions over time, you gradually create a body of work, knowledge, or improvement that's far greater than what you would have achieved if you'd relied on sporadic, high-intensity efforts. The secret lies in the consistency, the belief that no matter how small the action, it's part of a larger picture, and over time, it will lead to profound results. So the next time you feel like your efforts aren't adding up or wonder if the small actions you're taking are really worth it, remember this: it's the accumulation of those small actions that creates meaningful, lasting change. Stay consistent, trust the process, and watch as the sum of your daily efforts leads to a transformation you might never have believed was possible. One of the biggest challenges people face when pursuing a goal or trying to make a change is maintaining motivation over the long term. We often start off strong, filled with excitement and energy. But then as time goes on, the enthusiasm fades and we're left feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, or even burnt out. This is where the power of small, manageable habits comes in. When we set large, ambitious goals, it's easy to become intimidated by the enormity of the task. If you want to lose 50 pounds, run a marathon, or read 50 books in a year, these goals can seem daunting. And the bigger the goal, the more pressure we place on ourselves to perform all at once. That sense of pressure can make the process feel like a mountain too steep to climb, causing us to procrastinate or abandon the goal altogether. But the truth is, we don't need to do it all at once. Small, manageable actions are far more sustainable because they don't overwhelm us. They allow us to take one step at a time, making the process feel achievable and less stressful. This is the key to long-term success, not pushing ourselves to the limit in short bursts, but creating a routine of small, consistent actions that we can continue indefinitely. Let's take exercise, for example. If you want to get in better shape, starting with a goal of working out for an hour every day might seem necessary for quick results. But the problem is that for most people, finding an hour every single day can be a struggle. And even if you manage to stick to that ambitious routine for a few weeks, it's easy to burn out, especially when life gets busy or things don't go according to plan. Now, imagine you start with just 10 or 20 minutes a day. That's a small commitment, one that's far easier to fit into your schedule. It doesn't require a huge amount of energy, and it feels manageable, no matter how hectic your day might be. And here's the beauty: over time, those small daily sessions accumulate. You might start to feel the physical benefits after a few weeks: more energy, improved mood, maybe even some visible results. And once those small wins start to show, it becomes easier to make exercise a regular part of your day. You'll find yourself increasing your time or intensity, but the process will still feel sustainable because you've built the habit gradually. Starting small gives you the space to build momentum without overwhelming your willpower. And as the momentum grows, it makes the habit stronger, more ingrained, and more automatic. You don't have to constantly push yourself to stay motivated because the habit has already become part of your routine. The same principle applies to other areas of life, like reading, writing, or learning a new skill. Let's say your goal is to read more books this year. If you aim to read 50 books, that can sound overwhelming, especially if you're already busy with other commitments. But what if you commit to reading just 10 pages a day? At first, it's hardly a noticeable effort, but by the end of the year, you'll have read over 3,600 pages, which is enough for about 12 full-length books. Small actions are also easier to track and evaluate. When you set a large goal, it can be difficult to gauge progress, and without visible results, it's easy to get discouraged. But with small, consistent habits, the results start to show up faster. You can see your progress more clearly and in real time. Even small improvements, whether it's a few pages read, a few extra minutes exercise, or a few new words learned, feel rewarding. And those rewards, however small, are a key motivator that propels you forward. Another reason small actions are more sustainable is because they are flexible. Life is unpredictable. Some days things don't go according to plan. But when your goal is to do just one small action each day, it becomes easier to adapt to unexpected circumstances. Let's say you set out to exercise for 30 minutes, but you're suddenly busy with work or family obligations. If you've trained yourself to focus on smaller goals, it won't be as hard to adjust and just do a shorter 10-minute workout instead. Even when life throws you a curveball, your commitment to small, manageable actions keeps you moving forward. On the other hand, when we set huge goals and fail to meet them, it can trigger feelings of frustration or defeat. This is where small actions offer a psychological advantage. By keeping things small and realistic, we give ourselves the chance to succeed more often, building positive reinforcement. And success, no matter how small, is a huge motivator. In essence, small, manageable habits aren't just easier to stick with, they're more likely to produce long-lasting change. The key to consistency is not in setting grandiose, overwhelming goals, but in building a system of small, repeatable actions that you can keep up with for the long haul. This approach doesn't just help you achieve your goals, it helps you create a lifestyle of continuous improvement, making success feel natural rather than forced. The sustainability of small actions means that you don't need to rely on bursts of motivation. You just need to trust in the process of consistency day in and day out, and believe that one of the most powerful aspects of consistency is its ability to create momentum. When we think about momentum, we often picture a snowball rolling down a hill, starting small but quickly growing in size and speed as it picks up more snow along the way. The same concept applies to our habits, efforts, and progress. Momentum is the force that makes it easier to keep going, even when things get tough. At first, when we're building a new habit or trying to achieve something, it can feel like we're pushing a boulder uphill. Each step takes effort, and progress can seem slow. But once we begin to gain momentum, those small successes, each tiny step forward, begin to build upon each other. Over time, this accumulated momentum makes the process feel easier and more natural. Think about the initial stages of starting any new habit. Whether you're trying to write every day, exercise regularly, or learn a new skill, the first few days or weeks can feel like a struggle. You're forcing yourself to carve out time, sometimes feeling like you're not seeing enough results to justify the effort. But here's the thing, even those small, seemingly insignificant actions are laying the groundwork for greater things to come. Each time you show up and take that small step, you're building momentum. You're creating a force that will eventually propel you forward without requiring as much effort. Momentum works in two ways. First, it makes it easier to continue what you've started. Once you've built some momentum, your habit becomes less of a chore and more of a natural part of your routine. For example, let's say you're working on a creative project and you decide to write just 200 words every day. At first, it feels like a small, insignificant effort. But after a few weeks, those 200 words start to add up and you start to see progress. You might find that you're no longer struggling to write every day. In fact, you might look forward to it. The habit has become ingrained, and now it feels almost automatic. Secondly, momentum makes it easier to take on more. As you continue to show up, even for just a small amount of time each day, you may find that the effort required to take action decreases. You might increase your word count from 200 to 500 words a day, or spend an extra 10 minutes exercising because the act of showing up has become so much easier. This is where the compounding effect kicks in. The more consistent you are, the more your confidence and capacity grow, and your initial small effort starts to snowball into bigger and more meaningful achievements. But this isn't just about making the process easier, it's also about creating a sense of accomplishment. Each time you show up, even in a small way, you're reinforcing a positive feedback loop. You're saying to yourself, I did it again. With every completed task, every small win, you build a sense of self-efficacy, the belief that you can do it, that you can continue and succeed. Over time, this builds momentum, a belief in yourself, which can be just as powerful as the physical momentum of taking action. This is why consistency is so important, because each success, no matter how small, reinforces the habit and increases your belief that you can keep going. You begin to trust that your efforts will pay off, even when you don't see immediate results. And that trust in the process gives you the strength to keep moving forward, even when obstacles or setbacks arise. The key to building momentum is starting small but showing up day after day. It's the repeated effort, the consistency that makes the snowball grow larger. And as that snowball of momentum picks up speed, you'll notice that your progress accelerates. What once felt like an uphill battle starts to feel like a smooth, downhill ride. This principle applies not just to personal goals, but also to larger projects and endeavors. For instance, if you're tackling a long-term project at work or in your personal life, consistency can help you break it down into manageable pieces. Each small task you complete builds momentum for the next one. And over time, you begin to see how the individual parts fit together into something much larger. Suddenly, the goal that once felt insurmountable now seems achievable because you've been making consistent progress every day. Momentum also makes it easier to bounce back from setbacks. When you're in a cycle of consistent action, a single setback or obstacle doesn't feel like the end of the world. You've already built up a track record of effort and progress, so you trust that you can get back on track. Momentum gives you resilience. For example, let's say you're working on improving your health by exercising regularly. One day you miss a workout due to illness or a busy schedule. In the past, you might have used that missed day as an excuse to quit altogether, thinking that one missed day would derail your entire progress. But when you've built momentum through consistent small actions, you know that missing a day is just a minor setback, not the end of the road. You pick up where you left off, and your momentum helps you get back on track quickly. In fact, the longer you maintain consistency, the easier it becomes to build upon your successes. Each small win, no matter how small, sets the stage for bigger wins. Momentum makes success easier because each success is like a small deposit in a bank account, adding up to something greater than the individual contributions. What started as a small action has now turned into a powerful force that propels you toward your goal. So remember, this consistency creates momentum. The more you show up, the more you build upon the previous day's efforts, and the more momentum you generate. This momentum makes it easier to continue to push through challenges and to achieve your goals. You don't need to force it or have it all figured out from the start. You just need to start small, stay consistent, and trust that momentum will take care of the rest. Small steps will add up to big results. When we think about making meaningful progress, we often imagine big, dramatic changes happening all at once. We dream of the sudden breakthrough moment, the day when everything clicks and we see the results of our hard work. But the reality is that true, lasting transformation rarely happens overnight. Instead, it's the small, consistent actions, the little deposits we make into our lives every day that compound over time to create results far greater than we ever imagined. Take, for instance, the concept of saving money. Suppose you decide to put away just $5 a day into a savings account. At first, it might feel insignificant. After all, $5 doesn't seem like much, and you might wonder how it will ever add up to anything substantial. But over the course of a month, that's $150. In a year, that's $1,825, enough to cover a good portion of an emergency fund, a vacation, or a special purchase. And over 10 years, with just a small, consistent daily deposit, you could have $18,250, not to mention the potential interest your savings could earn. Suddenly, that $5 doesn't seem so small anymore, does it? This is the power of the compound effect. Small, seemingly inconsequential actions add up over time to create huge results. The real power isn't in the individual deposit, but in the repeated, consistent nature of those deposits. What starts as a small, manageable commitment, whether it's saving money, exercising, or learning a new skill, builds momentum and compounds into something much larger. The same principle applies to physical fitness. Think about exercise for a moment. If you work out for just 15 minutes a day, at first it might not seem like you're doing enough to make a noticeable difference. You might feel like you're not getting the results you expect, especially compared to someone who spends hours in the gym. But what happens when you stick to it every day, week after week? Over the course of a month, that's 450 minutes of exercise, or 7.5 hours. Over a year, that's 91 hours of exercise, a full 4 days of dedicated physical activity. The compound effect isn't just about time, it's also about effort. The daily consistency, however small, multiplies over time, leading to greater results than if you had relied on occasional bursts of intense effort. It's like planting seeds in a garden. At first, you can't see much growth, but as you continue to water and nurture your plants every day, the growth becomes exponential. Eventually, you'll have a flourishing garden, but you won't be able to trace it back to any single day of effort. Instead, it will be the result of consistent care, nurtured over time. Another great example of the compound effect is in learning a new skill. Whether it's learning a language, playing an instrument, or mastering a craft, the process can feel slow and frustrating at times. If you spend just 20 minutes a day practicing, you might not see immediate progress. But over the course of a year, that's over 120 hours of practice. This concept also works in the world of relationships. If you make a habit of checking in with a friend or partner every day, even just with a small text or a brief conversation, that small effort builds trust and connection over time. One of the most powerful aspects of the compound effect is that it allows us to achieve big goals by breaking them down into small, manageable daily actions. We don't need to achieve everything at once. In fact, trying to do too much too quickly is often the very reason we give up. Instead, we can focus on small, consistent actions that align with our long-term vision. And over time, those actions add up to create massive change. In the same way that compound interest makes small amounts of money grow exponentially, the compound effect takes small actions and makes them grow exponentially, leading to big rewards. Whether it's physical fitness, financial success, personal growth, or relationships, consistency is the key. By making small, positive changes and committing to them every day, we set ourselves up for extraordinary results over time. And here's the most beautiful part: the compound effect is entirely in our control. We don't need to wait for external circumstances to change, for a lucky break, or for some grand opportunity to come our way. So embrace the compound effect. Start small, stay consistent, and trust that, over time, your efforts will compound into something extraordinary. When it comes to achieving our goals, one of the most powerful tools at our disposal is routine. A routine is a set of consistent actions performed regularly that eventually become so ingrained in our lives that we do them automatically. But the beauty of routines isn't just in their ability to help us manage our time better or stay organized. Routines provide the structure and consistency necessary to turn small habits into significant, life-changing results. They serve as the backbone of our efforts, turning actions that might initially require conscious thought into automatic behaviors that move us closer to our larger goals day after day. In the beginning, we often face resistance when trying to establish a new habit. Whether it's waking up early to exercise, writing for 30 minutes every morning, or committing to study a new skill, we have to actively choose to take that step each day. It's hard. It feels like we're pushing against inertia. And there are many days when the pull of old habits or distractions can seem overwhelming. But over time, as we stick to these small actions, they begin to shift from something we have to force ourselves to do into something that feels almost automatic. The reason this happens is because the brain loves efficiency. As we repeat an action over and over, the brain begins to wire itself to perform that action with less effort and conscious thought. What was once a deliberate choice becomes ingrained in our neural pathways so that we no longer have to consciously think about it. The act becomes part of our routine, a familiar pattern that we follow each day without resistance. This is why people who have been exercising regularly for months or years often speak about it like it's second nature. They don't have to think about it. It just happens. The more we repeat a behavior, the more automatic it becomes, until one day we realize we've built a habit so strong that it takes almost no effort at all to maintain. Let's take a closer look at how routine becomes the foundation for larger goals. Picture a person who sets a goal to write a book. At first, the idea of completing a book might seem daunting. How do you ever get from the blank page to a finished manuscript? But instead of focusing on the overwhelming task of write a book, the person might choose to create a small, daily writing routine. Maybe they commit to writing 500 words a day. That's not a huge commitment, and it doesn't feel like it's asking for too much. But as the days pass, the writing becomes part of their daily routine. Eventually, the 500 words per day add up. After a month, they've written over 15,000 words. After 6 months, that's 90,000 words, enough for a full-length book. In this scenario, the small, daily habit of writing doesn't just create progress, it transforms into the foundation of the larger goal. The person doesn't need to rely on bursts of inspiration or motivation to write. They simply show up every day, following their routine. As a result, their progress becomes inevitable. In fact, this is true for virtually any goal, whether it's getting fit, learning a new language, or building a business. The process of creating a routine is what ultimately makes the goal achievable. And once a habit becomes part of a routine, you don't need to rely on willpower to push yourself to do it. You just do it. You don't need to negotiate with yourself about whether or not to exercise, write, or work. It becomes part of who you are, something you just do every day because it's embedded in your routine. The power of routines is also that they help us manage our energy. In our busy lives, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the number of tasks and responsibilities we juggle daily. But routines allow us to organize our time and energy in a way that maximizes our effectiveness. For instance, if we know that we have a specific time every day to work on a project or exercise, we can focus all of our attention on that one task during that time without worrying about anything else. We're not spending energy debating whether or not we should do it, we just do it. Over time, as routines become ingrained, they reduce the mental clutter and decision fatigue that can hinder progress. Another powerful aspect of routines is that they reinforce accountability. When you make a habit part of your routine, you create an internal sense of responsibility. You've committed to showing up every day, so you're less likely to skip a day or let your progress slip. This sense of accountability can be incredibly motivating because once something becomes routine, it's not about forcing yourself to stay on track, it's about simply continuing the rhythm you've already established. Consider a morning routine as an example. Many successful people swear by the power of a morning ritual because it sets the tone for the entire day. This routine might include waking up at a certain time, exercising, meditating, reading, or planning the day ahead. By establishing a predictable sequence of actions, we eliminate the need to think too much in the morning, we just do it. The power here is that the routine is no longer a decision to be made. It's a set of actions you take without thinking about them, which frees up mental energy for other decisions later in the day. The more we reinforce a habit through routine, the more it strengthens and becomes automatic. And the more automatic a behavior becomes, the more we free ourselves from having to rely on willpower, making it easier to stay consistent. This is why successful people often talk about their routines, because routines simplify decision-making, build momentum, and take the mental burden off of achieving a goal. Once the action becomes routine, you simply show up and let the routine carry you forward. Additionally, routines create stability. Life can be chaotic and unpredictable, but when we have a set of daily habits that we can rely on, we create a sense of stability in our lives. No matter what challenges arise during the day, we know we can count on our routine to keep us grounded and focused on what matters most. This stability allows us to keep progressing toward our larger goals, even in the face of adversity. Ultimately, routines are powerful because they turn the extraordinary into the ordinary. They transform the actions needed to achieve our big dreams into manageable, repeatable steps that we perform every day. What might feel impossible on day one becomes second nature on day 100. And before we know it, we've accomplished what we once thought was out of reach, simply because we've made it part of our daily routine. In a world where instant gratification is often just a click away, one of the most powerful shifts we can make in our approach to goals and personal growth is to focus on the process, rather than obsessing over immediate results. We live in a time where everything from social media to online shopping encourages us to expect instant outcomes. If we post a photo, we want likes and comments immediately. If we invest time in learning a new skill, we expect to see fast progress. But the reality is that meaningful, lasting change is built through slow, steady, and consistent effort. It's in the process, not the immediate outcome, where true transformation happens. When we expect quick results, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The journey of personal growth, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, is rarely linear. There will be moments of fast progress, but also times when it feels like we're stuck, or when the results aren't as visible as we hope. It's in these moments of stagnation that many people get discouraged, abandon their efforts, or start chasing the next quick fix. This cycle of immediate gratification often prevents us from experiencing the true benefits that come from committing to the process for the long term. Let's consider the example of fitness. It's easy to start a new exercise routine with high expectations, believing that after a few sessions, we'll start seeing dramatic changes in our body. The first few weeks or months of exercise might not show the same visible results as we'd like. This is when many people give up. They're focused on the immediate outcome rather than trusting in the power of the process. However, the truth is that small, consistent efforts done day in and day out are what lead to real transformation. The muscle you build from consistent weightlifting isn't visible overnight. It builds gradually as the fibers repair and grow stronger after each workout. The same goes for improvements in endurance, flexibility, and overall health. These things take time and repetition. When we shift our focus to the process of showing up, doing the work, taking action, and staying consistent rather than expecting quick results, we start to trust that, over time, progress is being made, even if we don't see it right away. The same principle applies to other areas of life. Think about learning a new skill, whether it's playing an instrument, learning a language, or mastering a new craft. In the beginning, it can be frustrating. The first weeks or months may feel like you're not making much progress. You might still struggle with basic vocabulary, notes, or techniques. If you're focused solely on the end goal, this lack of immediate improvement can lead to frustration and burnout. But if you shift your mindset and focus on the process, the joy of learning, improving, and getting just a little bit better each day, the journey becomes more rewarding. For example, when learning a language, there will be days when you feel like you've forgotten everything you've learned, or that you're not progressing as quickly as you'd like. But if you shift your focus away from the need for instant fluency and instead focus on the small wins, learning a new word, understanding a simple sentence, or mastering a new grammar rule, you'll realize that you're making progress. With consistent effort, the cumulative knowledge builds, and over time, what seemed like a monumental task becomes achievable. Eventually, you'll reach the point where you can have a conversation in that language, and only then will you fully appreciate the significance of the consistent effort you put into the process. One of the most profound things we can do for our long-term success is to shift our mindset from one that's constantly focused on the finish line to one that's anchored in the present action. When we focus on the process, we remove the pressure of having to get results quickly. This shift allows us to approach our goals with patience and persistence. knowing that small, incremental actions will eventually lead to larger outcomes. Every day we show up and commit to the process, we are moving closer to where we want to be, even if the results aren't immediately visible. In fact, this shift in focus from outcomes to process helps to alleviate one of the biggest challenges people face when pursuing long-term goals, the temptation to quit. The process is what helps us weather the inevitable ups and downs. When we focus too much on results, we become attached to external markers of success, like numbers on a scale or the amount of money we're making, and these metrics can fluctuate wildly, leaving us frustrated. But when we focus on the process, we take back control. This process-oriented mindset also helps us deal with setbacks and failures. Let's be honest, failure is part of the journey. Whether we fail at a specific task, miss a deadline, or face unexpected obstacles, setbacks are inevitable. However, when we focus on the process, we don't allow a failure to define us or derail us. Instead, we see it as a part of the learning process, an opportunity to adjust, improve, and continue moving forward. We can trust that as long as we continue to put in the effort and remain consistent, the results will follow. For example, imagine you're building a business. At the start, it might feel like you're not seeing the kind of revenue or traction that you expected. But instead of focusing on the sales numbers, you focus on building the right systems, refining your products, and improving your marketing strategy. This process-oriented approach also reduces stress and anxiety. When we focus on results, we tend to become anxious about whether we're on track, constantly measuring our progress against arbitrary standards or timelines. But when we focus on the process, we can let go of that anxiety and trust that our consistent effort is moving us in the right direction. This reduces the pressure and allows us to enjoy the journey rather than obsess over the destination. Ultimately, trusting the process is about giving ourselves permission to be patient. It's about acknowledging that success is rarely immediate and that the most meaningful outcomes are the result of sustained effort over time. By shifting our focus away from quick fixes and immediate results, we can create a mindset that values the journey, that celebrates the small steps, and that trusts in the long-term benefits of consistent effort. The process becomes the foundation for achieving goals that are not just surface level or temporary, but deeply ingrained and lasting. While we often focus on the tangible outcomes that consistency can bring, like getting fitter, mastering a new skill, or achieving financial stability, it's equally important to recognize that consistency does more than just produce external results. It shapes us as individuals. It builds the internal character traits and personal qualities that define who we are and how we show up in the world. The act of showing up every day, no matter how small the task or how difficult the circumstances, helps us develop essential traits like discipline, resilience, focus, and patience. Consistency is the silent architect of character. It doesn't just build skill and capability, it shapes the person you become in the process. When you commit to something consistently, you don't just improve at a particular task, you improve as a human being. Every small action you take in alignment with your goals is an opportunity to develop the inner strength and qualities that will serve you far beyond the goal itself. One of the most significant qualities built through consistency is discipline. Discipline is often seen as the ability to resist immediate temptations or distractions in favor of long-term goals. And let's face it, discipline is hard. In our fast-paced, distraction-filled world, the easy path is often the one that promises immediate rewards, whether it's scrolling through social media, indulging in unhealthy habits, or procrastinating. But consistency requires you to choose long-term goals over short-term satisfaction day after day. Whether it's waking up early to work out, practicing an instrument, or studying for an exam, every time you stay committed to your goal, even when it feels inconvenient or challenging, you are building discipline. Over time, this discipline becomes internalized. It becomes a part of your identity, not just something you try to do, but a way of being. You learn to show up for yourself, to take responsibility for your growth, and to stay the course even when motivation wanes. Consistency also fosters resilience. The path to achieving any meaningful goal is rarely smooth. There will be obstacles, setbacks, and times when progress seems slow or even non-existent. Resilience is the ability to keep going despite the challenges, to bounce back when things don't go as planned, and to keep moving forward when it feels like the world is pushing you backward. Consistency is the daily practice that strengthens this muscle. By showing up every day, even when things aren't going perfectly, you train your mind to embrace challenges as part of the process. Each day of consistent effort, whether it's in the face of failure or success, builds mental toughness, teaching you that failure isn't a reason to quit, but an opportunity to learn and improve. The more resilient you become, the more you trust in your ability to overcome anything that comes your way. Resilience becomes an intrinsic part of who you are, a reflection of your determination and commitment to your growth, no matter the circumstances. Another critical trait nurtured through consistency is focus. In a world full of distractions, it's easy to start a project with enthusiasm, only to get sidetracked by external factors or internal doubts. Focus requires the ability to concentrate your energy and attention on one thing for an extended period of time. And this is a skill that grows stronger the more consistently you practice it. Whether you're working toward a personal goal, improving your professional skills, or mastering a craft, focusing on the task at hand is essential. Consistency teaches us to stay present, to quiet the distractions, and to remain committed to the process, even when there's a temptation to give up or wander off course. Over time, focus becomes second nature, and we begin to see the value in dedicating ourselves fully to whatever we choose to do, instead of spreading ourselves too thin or chasing after every new shiny object. Consistency also cultivates patience, the ability to wait for results without rushing or forcing outcomes. In our world, patience is often undervalued, but the reality is that meaningful achievements rarely happen in a hurry. When you are consistent, you develop the patience to trust that the results will come, even if they take longer than you expect. You learn that success isn't something that can be rushed. It's a product of persistent effort over time. This patience applies not only to external results, but to your own internal growth. It teaches you to be kind and patient with yourself, knowing that learning, improving, and evolving takes time. Patience, built through consistent effort, allows you to stay calm in the face of delays and setbacks, without becoming discouraged or giving up prematurely. At the same time, consistency teaches us to embrace delayed gratification. In a culture that often emphasizes immediate rewards, the ability to delay gratification in favor of long-term success is a powerful skill. Whether it's saving money for a future goal, studying for a challenging exam, or training for a race, consistency helps us train ourselves to focus on the long-term benefits instead of seeking quick rewards. This mindset is crucial not only for achieving personal success, but for making thoughtful decisions that align with our values and aspirations. Delayed gratification often means delaying temporary pleasure for more meaningful, lasting achievements, and consistency is the key to maintaining that perspective. Over time, these qualities, discipline, resilience, focus, patience, and delayed gratification, become deeply embedded in our character. They're not just something we apply when we're pursuing a specific goal, they become a part of who we are, shaping how we approach everything we do. Whether it's in our personal lives, in relationships, in our professional endeavors, or in our health, these traits of character will guide us through life's challenges. The beauty of consistency is that it doesn't just make us more skilled at a task, it makes us better people. It transforms us into individuals who are capable of overcoming obstacles, achieving goals, and continuously evolving. Moreover, the process of being consistent doesn't just build skill in the technical sense, it builds mastery over ourselves. It helps us to develop self-control, to push through resistance, and to maintain our efforts even when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. It's this inner mastery that makes all the external skills and achievements meaningful. Consistency teaches us that success isn't about perfection, but about the commitment to improvement, the willingness to show up day after day, no matter how small the steps might seem. So while consistency will undoubtedly lead to external success, it's equally valuable because it builds the internal traits that define true character. The small actions you take every day not only shape what you can do, they shape who you are. Over time, as you develop these qualities, you'll find that consistency doesn't just help you achieve your goals, it helps you become the kind of person who can sustain those achievements and continue to grow in the face of any challenge. In our quest for big goals, we often overlook the power of small wins, those seemingly minor victories that, when acknowledged, can become the very fuel that propels us toward even greater achievements. In our world, where we are constantly encouraged to aim for the big win or the grand breakthrough, it's easy to forget that progress is rarely linear, and significant change rarely happens overnight. However, if we embrace and celebrate small wins along the way, we can build momentum, sustain motivation, and create a mindset that thrives on continuous improvement. Small wins matter more than we realize. Whether it's completing a workout, finishing a chapter of a book, making a healthy meal, or writing just a few paragraphs of a novel, each of these small steps brings us closer to our larger goals. The problem is that we often dismiss these achievements as insignificant or not worth celebrating. We tell ourselves it's just a small step or it doesn't count for much, but the truth is these small wins accumulate. They compound just like small deposits in a savings account, building up over time to create significant change. Celebrating small wins is about acknowledging that progress, no matter how small, is progress. It's about recognizing that every little action you take moves you closer to your goal. And each moment of effort, no matter how seemingly trivial, deserves recognition. By taking the time to celebrate these small victories, you send a powerful message to yourself that you are making progress. This recognition reinforces your belief in yourself and your ability to continue forward. It becomes a reminder that while the big goal may still feel distant, you're on the right path, and that can be incredibly motivating. Celebrating small wins also helps us to shift our focus away from perfection. Too often, we become fixated on the end result, thinking that only when we achieve the final goal will we truly have something to celebrate. But that focus on the end point can be discouraging, especially when the journey feels long and difficult. Instead, by celebrating small wins along the way, we learn to value the process itself. We start to see that every step counts and that the journey is just as meaningful as the destination. By acknowledging the small victories, we begin to change our perspective. Progress doesn't have to be big to be significant. One powerful reason to celebrate small wins is the confidence boost it provides. Every time we accomplish something, no matter how small, it's a reaffirmation that we are capable. Small wins build our self-efficacy, our belief in our ability to achieve goals. This confidence is critical because in many cases, the greatest barrier to success is the doubt we hold about ourselves. If we only wait for the big wins before we give ourselves credit, we risk becoming discouraged and losing momentum. But when we celebrate the small victories, we reinforce our belief that we are moving in the right direction, and we gain the confidence to continue pushing forward. Take, for example, a person trying to get into the habit of exercising regularly. The first few workouts might feel hard, and the results may not be immediately noticeable. But if they take time to celebrate even small achievements like getting up early for a workout or doing their first 15-minute session, those small wins create positive reinforcement. In fact, celebrating small wins is a great way to counterbalance the frustration of setbacks. Another important aspect of embracing small wins is how it enhances motivation. Motivation, like willpower, is finite. We can't rely on it alone to get us through long, challenging tasks. However, small wins can provide a steady stream of motivation. Each time we accomplish something, no matter how small, we experience a sense of satisfaction. This satisfaction releases dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which reinforces the behavior and motivates us to continue.